As always, we have economist, CEO of Mentoria, Ken Gishinga, joining us to break down some of the top stories. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off talking about the SMEs because they have been talked about quite widely, of course, after the roundtable and President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks. What do you think, first of all, about the fact that he went ahead and said he's not very happy with how his government has been treating SMEs?
That was a big day at Strathmore Business School on Tuesday, and the president essentially apologized to the SMEs, saying SMEs contribute 75% of job opportunities in Kenya, but the government only seems to be concentrating on the big companies that only produce 25% of the labor force. So I think for him it was a time for government strategy. You know, we talk about the big four, and one of the big things is why should SMEs not to be part of the big four, because they do so much for the economic transformation of this country. So I think it was a message that was well received by the SME community, but more specifically, people are looking for policy measures that will come out from that meeting.
All right. In fact, speaking of policy measures, before we get into this, the SMEs do employ, like you said, 70% of the national workforce. We've seen that he has also directed the Energy Regulatory Commission to actually reduce the cost of electricity to small and medium enterprises within 1 month. And now we've seen that, they've already capped it at about 5,000 kilowatts per month. That is consumption by small commercial industries. That's the benchmark. After that point, I guess they're not considered small commercial industries anymore. What do you think about this new, electricity reduction for the SMEs? Will it benefit them greatly?
I think it's an important move because every time you do a survey, SMEs will always tell you that the cost of doing business in Kenya is very high. And when they talk about the cost of doing business, more often than not, they're referring to the cost of energy, which is very high, especially here in Nairobi. So I think it was a good measure. As you said, the Energy Regulatory Commission considers anybody below 5,000 per kilowatt hour per month to be a small-scale consumer. Anybody beyond that is considered to be a large-scale consumer. So I think they need to reduce the tariffs. Right now it's at 21 shillings 95 cents for per kilowatt hour. I think they need to bring it down closer to 20, and I think that will be felt by the SMEs.
All right, so at least if we talk numbers, then the electricity costs for an SME should be less than 100,000 per month.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think of your typical SME, it's hiring anywhere between 10 to 20 people, some even less. You know, the thing about SMEs, it's a very misleading term because we have small SMEs, which are 2-3 people. You have large SMEs, which are almost 100 people. And I think one of the challenges of the word SMEs, it can be very misleading because are we talking of small, medium, or the large SMEs? And the characteristics of each of those three is actually quite different. You'll find SMEs that have 200 people but are still considered by banks to be SMEs. So I think we also need to really get clear on what do we define as an SME in Kenya. There's a global definition that's applied by the Europeans, but I think we need to have a more Kenyan understanding of what SME means.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that we're going to be discussing, of course, is the money transfers. When we've talked about the telecommunications companies that are benefiting from the mobile money transfers that Kenyans do every day. We've seen the numbers, actually, hoping we can get them on here, that between July and September 2018, this is according to the Central Bank of Kenya, about 10.97 billion mobile money transfers daily. That's a big number. That's
11% from last year's numbers.
Absolutely.
Up. And it's a big number, but
yes,
if you really think of the efficiency that mobile money brings, I mean, it's incredible. And I expect those numbers to continue over the next 5 years. Very few card adoption in terms of ATM cards, not many people have adopted that. It seems to be mobile money because of the ubiquitousness of the mobile phone. Anybody in urban Kenya, in rural Kenya, has a mobile phone. So it's a natural thing.
Also take it because, of course, there was that change in the taxes as well.
They'll have to take a hit. As you've said, the tariffs went up on 30 cents on SMS on data services and 10 cents on SMS services. Obviously, that will impact on mobile money too. And anytime you have a price increase, two things happen. Either people reduce the demand for it, or they substitute, they get substitutes. And you're seeing the other telcos coming up. I think yesterday you were with the telco executive who said they are focusing on data because a lot of Kenyans are using more of data. People are WhatsApping more than they are actually sending SMSs.
Yes.
So I think obviously mobile money is such a critical part of the Kenyan economy that we don't have many substitutes towards M-Pesa. So even if prices of M-Pesa go up, you still see the same stickiness in terms of that. But if the other telcos were to come up with proper mobile money solutions, then obviously we would have seen a mix. But unfortunately, M-Pesa is still a very dominant service in Kenya.
All right, thank you very much, Ken. Ken Gishinga there joining us talking